everyone for joining us tonight. We're here to receive a presentation on the 40B proposal. Martha's going to lay out some guidelines, or do you want me to lay out the guidelines?
Either way.
It's primarily, this is an information gathering meeting for us. It's not a debate or any of that, so just wanted to put that out there and make that clear that we're here to hear the proposal, not contest any of the points in it or any of those things that will come later on. And now that is when you guys open your meeting.
So I'll open the planning board meeting. My name is Pete Pickles. The members of the planning board are,
Leslie Matthews.
Larry Murphy.
George Morse.
Martha Taylor, town planner.
and we will also be holding a joint meeting. And again, this is an informational meeting. So,
All right. So, would you guys like to start the presentation?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Douglas Duchesne. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Duchesne and Farrell out of Westford, Mass. And I'm here this evening representing Cricket Lane LLC. My client is proposing a 24-unit single-family 40B project off of Pearson Drive, a for-sale project. As I understand, this project was before the town in a number of its boards some number of years ago. Went through a significant part of the process, and then due to legal issues, the project was withdrawn, or the site eligibility letter was withdrawn, and that project was passed. I'd like to state that while the physical design of the project you will see has not changed significantly, what has changed is the development team, the people that are here before you proposing this project. Mr. Erickson has a significant experience in the 40B world. He has worked with my firm to develop 5 projects down in the Westford, Kingsborough area. He has also, over the many years that he has been building, done numerous residential projects. So he has a significant amount of experience in this, as well as in residential development as a whole. Ben Osgood from Ranger Engineering is here as well. Ben is the engineer. His firm was the company that did do the original engineering and design of the project, so that is one consistent in terms of the past history, as we are using the same engineering firm. My firm obviously is new to this, although we have done dozens of affordable housing projects from Newburyport down to Concord, Massachusetts, and as far west as Foxborough. So we've done a number of 40B projects throughout the state. While it is a new development team based on a design that you've seen before, we have started the process anew. So as you know, we have applied to Mass Housing for a new site eligibility letter. We have filed that with them, and as you know, you have been asked to provide commentary or input to Mass Housing with respect to our application. And so we're here tonight, as you stated, to give you an overview of the project, maybe remind you of some things you may have forgotten, and that way you are better informed to provide your commentary to Mass Housing. So we appreciate your time, and you're allowing us an opportunity to give you the information, and certainly the work that you have to go through to provide input to Mass Housing. With that, I would like to introduce Ben Osgood from Ranger Engineering. He's going to give you the numbers, the technical sort of overview, the how many, the where, why, lengths, sizes, things like that. Just a general technical overview of the project. And then we'll be here to answer any questions you have related to the project, and hopefully we can provide you all the information you are looking for. So with that, Ben.
Thank you very much. Ben, before you start, one thing I just wanted to say is, for people sitting in the audience, please remember that we have mics in the back, and even if you're whispering in the back, you will pick out get picked up and drown out the other sound in the room. So please try and keep your commentary in the audience to when you have a question that is recognized.
Good evening, my name is Dan Osgood, I'm a registered professional engineer with Ranger Engineering. We're out of Methuen, Mass. The project location is 55 Pearson Drive in the rear. We have kind of the existing conditions map on the wall here. I decided I want to stand in front of the camera, so I'm moving aside. It's about 15 acres. It's on the north side of Pearson Drive. These are the abutting houses that are along Pearson Drive. Our access will come in from 55, which is here, and the Martin Burns Reservation surrounds the property on both the north and the west side. We've shown here some wetlands. There's 4 series of wetlands that have been delineated, and they have actually been approved by the Conservation Commission through the abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Determination process. You can see these areas in the middle of the site are the dry areas, which will be where the proposed homes are going to be located. And you can see the topography. We have a couple of knolls, some flat areas. It's generally rolling topography, typical of Newbury. This is the proposed layout plan. And again, we have access from 55 Pearson Drive. We propose a 24-foot wide roadway, about 830 feet long, to a cul-de-sac. The 24 units are located along the roadway, a couple of small private kind of common driveways to accommodate a few of the units. The septic system area is located in this area. The topography there is relatively flat. Soils are very conducive for septic disposal. You can see we've left areas along the wetlands wherever possible for buffer and kept everything kind of away from the adjacent homes for the most part on Pearson Drive. I should say, just mention real quick, no, it's not going to go back. Oh, there it goes. We do have sidewalks on one side of the roadway, street trees shown here as well. This is the grading and drainage plan. It shows generally where, the grades of the property are. The road comes in, it's kind of level, it dips down a little bit to a low point and rises up to a high point up where the cul-de-sac is. These homes are built along the top of the ridges. Stormwater is located down in the lower areas. In here in the back, there's an underground detention area in the center of the cul-de-sac. The stormwater pond here on the front. We do fill a little piece of wetlands here, and it will be replicated up on the 55 Pearson Drive property. I guess it takes a second here. Oops. 5, 4. Oh, I guess that is. There we go. This is the utility plan. So it shows the detail of the septic system, where that's located. It's a pipe and stone trench system. We have various sewer lines that serve the different houses, and it's actually 2 systems. The water line would connect to the existing water in Pearson Drive, run a 10-inch line up into the subdivision, individual water services, and 3 hydrants throughout the project. And again, underground electric cable, that sort of thing. And lastly, we just have a rendering of the house styles. This would be pretty typical of what will be constructed, so that's all I have.
Square footage of the house.
I guess either Mr. Erickson or
They can talk to that, I'm not sure exactly.
Good evening. My name is Walter Erickson. I'm the developer of this proposed project. My company, Applewood Construction, has been in business since 1992. Probably built between 500 and 1,000 units. Lowell, Drake, Kingsborough, Boxborough, Groton, Westford, Bolton, Nashua. So We've been around, again, since 1992, so we've been in business a long time. And we're excited about this project. This is a nice, concise cluster development that minimizes disturbance of the adjacent area and limits the amount of resources that we have to use to develop this site. We expect the units to be very energy efficient. We use high efficient electric heat pumps. We're working with solar company to provide solar panels on them. We do extra energy conservation methods with better than R49 in the ceilings and better than R25 in the walls. On-demand hot water heaters, energy efficient heat pumps, heating systems located in each room. And we think this will be a project that the town will be proud of. If the town goes with local option and community preferences, your own firemen and school teachers may be able to purchase some of these units for probably the affordable units for about $220,000, which would be significantly below what the market rate is. So it would be a great opportunity for some of your own residents. So we're excited to be going before the town and working with the town boards, and hopefully we'll be able to accommodate a lot of your wishes.
So just a couple quick points of fact on the house. There are 24 units proposed. There will be 6 affordable units, 25% of the units will be affordable. All of the affordable will be 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath homes. There will be 18 market rate units. 12 of those will be 3 bedrooms and 6 will be 4-bedroom homes. The sizes for the 3 bedrooms are about 2,500 square feet for the homes, and the 4 bedrooms are approximately 2,700 square feet. As Ben mentioned earlier, we currently have 2 general styles that we're looking to build, although we are working on a 3rd design that will be similar in size, similar in design, but different, just a little different architecturally. We would hope to potentially have that 3rd unit if in fact we finish it, designing it, certainly by the time we're before your zoning board, if that comes to fruition. So with that, I know that's kind of a quick general overview, but we're certainly here to answer any more specific questions you might have about the project. So.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
What is the actual square acreage that you're gonna use to put the houses on? And what is the size of each one of the lots?
Well, we're not actually creating separate lots. This will be a condominium form of ownership.
So they'll have an HOA?
Yes, it will be a homeowners association, it will be responsible for the, the landscaping and maintenance, things like that. Each individual home, however, will have its own exclusive use area, which is the land under the home and, the driveway, and then, Walter, how generally I know you give a...
So they'll have a nice backyard area. Side yards will be minimum, but what we're doing is we'll be incorporating some recreational facilities over the septic area, community play area, and maybe there's almost enough room for a small soccer field. We estimate that the homeowner association fee will be about $230 a month. So that'll include snow plowing, landscaping, irrigation system for the grass and the lawns, maintenance, and some insurance.
Are these full basement?
Yes.
To answer your first part of your question, we've got about 15 to 16 acres total in the parcel. Ben, do you have a rough estimate of, sort of the development area?
I believe the disturbed area in
Probably about 7 or 8 acres.
Okay, thank you.
so will the road remain a private way then?
Yes, it will.
I have a question for Ben. Ben, on the driveways, the 2 driveways that go in, how wide are those? You know?
The 2 common driveways?
Yes.
They're 16 feet.
16 feet. Martha, has the fire department looked at this before at 16 feet?
I don't know. I don't know actually whether they.
It meets
looked at that part.
NFPA as far as fire access is concerned.
What is the shortest distance from the proposed structures to the existing structures on Pearson Drive?
Yeah. So in this area, the closest house here is Unit 1 is 10 feet off the property line. I believe this house is probably, just estimating, I think it's about 65, 75 feet away. So it's probably 85, 90 feet away. And that's on this house here.
Yeah, that's get further away. I wasn't sure where it does that. And since we have this picture up, how are you shifting the design so that the windows of these houses don't line up and look directly into each other? Is that something that you are addressing, or is not something you're worried about?
It's not really something we're worried about.
Okay.
A lot of multifamily units that we've done have the same kind of problem, and it's
Yeah.
typical on a cluster subdivision. Even if we're 20 feet apart, it's still close enough that they need shades and blinds.
With the septic system, what is the maintenance schedule for that? And we're generally on single house septic systems in this area, so I'm unfamiliar with this type of septic, and I don't know how it's maintained, what needs to go into that, because I assume at some point it will cease to perk, and you have to dig it up and do it again. I just don't know how these systems work exactly, so could you talk about that a little bit?
So the system is a leach trench and stone system. Small leach trenches at 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep. They're spaced 6 feet apart. They actually are designed so that if the primary trenches fail, you can put new trenches right in between the existing ones.
Okay.
So it's not as much of a job as it would be to redo everything and dig it all up. Basically they come into large tanks, and then it's pumped from the tank. It's actually pressure dosed into the ground, so it's spread more evenly. It's a better system, and on this size of a system, there will be a requirement to have an inspection at least annually, and reported to the Board of Health.
Mhm.
So a common system actually has more maintenance and more observation than just a single family home where it can just go for 20 years without ever being looked at.
It's one of the good things about a community septic system and a homeowners association. It's a requirement that we have a maintenance schedule for the septic system, and it's provided for by the homeowner association dues. So it will be pumped out on a regular basis. It has to be monitored by a licensed professional on a regular basis, and we have to put money in for a reserve fund so that if there's ever a problem, it would be corrected and repaired.
Generally, the Board of Health, in approving this type of system, will require that we actually provide them with a copy of the maintenance contract with the professional to show that the homeowners association has in fact already contracted for that, just to provide assurances that it'll get done. And as Mr. Erickson said, given the fact that it's going to be done through the homeowners association, there's always funds for it.
Yeah. What is the general lifetime before you would have to go to those secondary trenches you mentioned?
I've inspected systems that are 40, 50 years old. So, they generally say it's 20, 25 years, but there's a lot of factors that play into that.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
it's okay. Is there a requirement for septic reserve in between the 6-foot rows fulfilling that reserve requirement?
Yes.
So you don't have a separate area for reserve?
No, it goes nested in between what's there.
That was part of what I was asking.
Do the people, they get the affordable housing, do they get a break on the fee for,
That's an interesting question, and it's been over the 25 years that I've been doing these, it's evolved. We used to provide a discount to the affordable units to quite frankly, make them even more affordable. However, we found that it caused problems between the owners, because while the non-affordable units, our experience has been, there's been no issue with, affordable and non-affordable. But the only issue you get is that the market rate unit people feel a little shortchanged, and that they're paying a greater percentage of the homeowners association fees, even though all the homes are getting the same services. So we found that by making them all the same, it eliminates any hard feelings or any issues, and it creates a neighborhood feeling that we're all in this together, we're all paying equally. I will tell you though that comes at a cost to the developer, because the higher the condo fee, the lower the price on the affordable units. So while if you gave them $100 break on the homeowners association, you could actually sell that affordable unit for a little more money. We found that it just isn't worth setting neighbors off against each other. We keep it the same, it's fair, it's even, and while it pushed, and in the end, it actually pushes the price of the affordable down a little. So they are getting a benefit, it's just not in terms of that fee.
I had a couple of questions there to different people, if that's okay. You mentioned solar panels on your homes. Tell me what that design looks like. Is that a couple of panels, or is that a significant?
Well, I have one solar company right now that's mapping it out based on our orientation. So they map it based on the south and southeast exposure. So some of the units can have a full back roof, a full front roof, and the others can only have a certain number of panels.
So will that be a kind of a combined community sort of solar production for this facility?
Nope, we'll be putting them on each roof, and they'll be serving each individual house. We use high energy efficient electric heat pumps for heating system, so that'll supplement the electric bill.
Has it been thought about a solar, a combined, for lack of a better term, community solar design, so that maybe you went by your septic field or something like that and sat there ground mounted? That was an entire development process from it?
To be honest with you, I haven't looked at that.
It's a little bit more,
It's probably something to look
it's a
at.
little bit more expensive, but I mean, then you could tie it into every unit. Just a thought. Along the same lines, I know that when we did our site walk, we mentioned supplemental water, and we were going to investigate that. Has anything been done with that?
No, we looked at some of the reports from the water department, and we didn't feel that there was a problem with the pressure or the quantity that was available. We probably will drill a well for irrigation, so that we don't use the town water resources for irrigation.
Peter, there was some conversation that maybe some of the tests that were taken should also be done at different types of peak periods.
Of the day, which kind of makes sense, since we oftentimes see those mandatory water restriction signs in the water district.
And that's a long way down for the existing infrastructure and the whole package.
Yeah, and we do use all low flow, energy conserving systems.
On the design of the homes, they look like they're all two-story configuration.
Yes.
Is there any thought to making any of these ADA accessible and or elder design?
There is an opportunity to put a bedroom on the first floor. We have a dining room or a den set up on some of the floor plans, so that could be built into the homes.
So you could design, or you would design ADA?
We would, if a customer came in and had that preference and needed that, we would do that.
Would you do that for your affordable units right off the bat?
We could do it for one if it was needed, yes.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out the needs.
Yes, we could.
Might be, so,
Yep.
so you'd be willing to do at least one that way.
Mhm.
Did I understand correctly that the replication of the wetlands will take place on 55 Pearson?
Yes.
Okay, so that's also a property that will be part of this.
Yes.
And then you brought up it was brought up the HOA fees would be similar for everyone, because it doesn't, you don't want to create any conflict between one home versus another home. Are your market units going to be designed and kind of fit out the same as your non-market units?
No. The exterior will look the same
The interior?
in compliance with the regs. The interior will be different. We use a hardwood floor, ceramic tile, and the market rate units, granite countertops. In the affordable units, we use carpet and a vinyl floor, laminate countertops, all good quality. We would use not builder's grade, we use all middle of the road anyway, and it's a fine unit, it's just not gonna have the upgrades that the other units have.
Mass housing dictates that the homes not be, you know, physically differentiated from the outside. And they will also require that we disperse the affordable units throughout the project evenly, so they're not all in one corner or along one road. There'll be, mass housing usually gives us some pretty specific direction as to, or they ask us how we want to spread them out, and then if they have an issue, they'll tell us to move them.
So just so everyone understands, the construction will be the same, but the window dressings for the units will be different, if you will.
Yeah, countertops, flooring,
Those are the
same sheetrock, same paint, same,
initial questions I have.
same electrical, plumbing, yeah, all of the physical is the same. It's the window dressing, as you said.
So you mentioned the R45 in the ceilings and 25 in the walls. Are you using spray foam, fiberglass? What is your typical insulation style?
It'll be R49 plus in the ceiling. We do about 22, 24 inches of blown-in high-density fiberglass.
Okay.
On the walls, we use a combination of blown-in foam, and we net the walls, and we blow in the high-density fiberglass as well. So we use a combination of different methods. We don't use the bats.
It's good. Those are kind of useless.
Where does, sorry, Dan. Just for kicks, where does the house breathe? Is it vents or what?
Well, it's actually,
You have air exchanges in them? or-
we have an air exchange fans in the bathroom that, under new energy code, one has to be going all the time. And the new energy code that's coming out, there will be air exchange systems built into the houses. Because you're right, they can't breathe. They're becoming so tight now and so energy efficient, you have a tendency to build up some moisture. Not something that I'm a fan of, but
You talked about community preference earlier. Could you explain for the public what exactly that means and how that works?
Do that, or?
you.
If requested, and as Walter said, he is willing to agree to local preferences. I believe up to 70% of the affordable units can be dedicated to town residents, town employees. There are other preferences, you veterans, the town would, be able to sort of dictate, ask, and we're always willing to do it, that 70% of the units, so five of six, I believe, could be dedicated to town residents and/or, if you wanted, town employees. But that's a choice the town will make, and we've already agreed to do it. So we generally see, most towns always want the preference. Sure, why wouldn't you?
So now that you brought that up, if we did elect to do something like that, and we elected for 5 of the 6 units to go towards town-directed individuals, and we identified older people in our community that would be appropriate, and we identified a number of those people that would have special needs, how would we work that into our equation?
So the process for getting approved for one of the affordable units is governed by mass housing regulations and their qualification requirements. They have to make no more than 80% of the median income for the household size that they have. And
Going back to the ADA thing, that's where this.
yeah, what we have to do is we hire an outside lottery agent firm that's approved by this board, by the Board of Appeals and by Mass Housing. So we pay for an outside firm to run the lottery, qualify the applicants, and pick everything. So we're hands-off. I'm not 100% sure of all the qualifications that they have to meet.
No, I understand.
Essentially what they do is they set the lottery out, in its simplest form, you take all of your qualifying applicants, and you would take all of the applicants that have the preference characteristics that the town wants, as long as it's an allowed preference category under mass housing and the state law. So let's use the simplest one, residency, town residency. You take all of your pool of applicants, qualified applicants, you would take all of those that are residents, they would go in their own lottery pool. So if that was the only preference you had, the 5 units would be selected from that lottery pool. And then the last unit, you would combine all of your applicants, including residents, and they'd pick the last one. As you create other preferences, and again, they have to be approved by mass housing. Like say, for instance, you said we want to have 2 of the residential preferences to seniors. The lottery agent literally, collects all of the qualifying residents over 55, and they have their own little pool, and you would pick 2 from that pool, and then roll them back into the residency pool, pull the 3 more, and then roll all of them back into the general pool and pick the last one. So that's how the lottery agent, and that's an independent company that, again, dictated by your zoning board, and of course they're experience qualified. There aren't a lot of lottery agents, so we tend to see the same over and over. And they run that. They're completely responsible for taking applications, verifying qualifications, and doing the lottery.
So I got that. So I already have a commitment for at least 1 ADA design of the 6 affordables. What I'm trying to find out is, if the town has a preference to have more of that, is that an issue from a construction standpoint for you?
Probably not.
Okay.
If this project moves forward, from breaking ground to put in the driveway, how long do you expect it to take to get to completion of the first house, of the last house?
Well, for the last house, probably be market driven, but we think we'll be completed everything in under 2 years.
Actually, I have a question, actually a 2-part question. One of the concerns I've heard is the impact of traffic, particularly on Pearson Drive. Do you have an estimate of the number of vehicle trips per day this project would generate? And have you made any accommodation for visitor parking?
We did a full traffic analysis in the original application. We'll present that again. I believe it's around 250 trips per day. It's in and out. The impact was deemed to be negligible, agreed to by the town consultant. And as far as the parking goes, each property has 2 parking stalls in the garage, 2 parking stalls in the driveway. So there generally isn't any additional visitor parking. They can park on one side of the street, we'll prohibit parking on the other side of the street for the wishes of the fire department.
All right, if there are no further questions from either of the boards, I'd like to open it up for questions from the town residents. Please come on up and state your name.
Just
Yes, please.
Claire Dix, I live on High Road. Because Newbury is such a beautiful town, and I have a couple of questions regarding aesthetics. I wanted to know basically how many different designs, if I understood correctly, you only have 1 design of all the cluster homes?
Well, the original proposal had 2. Our architect now is working on at least a 3rd. So we expect to have 3 basic designs, but we'll change the facade a little bit on the outside of the house. The inside of the house will have the same design, but the outside of the house, by adding some A's or gables, we can change it so that it's not all cookie cutter.
Okay. How much space will be between each home?
They're only 10 to 15 feet apart.
And how many homes do you expect to build in 7 to 8 acres? Is that's the amount?
That's all 24.
24, okay. And will this cluster be visible from Pearson Drive?
I think only from the roadway. Because we're pretty far off there and it's wooded.
Yeah, in the wintertime, you may see it more, but we've been out there in the summertime, I think one of the previous site walks, where you stood where some of these units in the cul-de-sac are, and you couldn't see any homes. So it's pretty thick, there's a pretty thick buffer zone there. So I don't think as driving along Pearson Drive, it'd be very unlikely that you'd see anything major. You might see something through the woods.
Would the people who have homes on Pearson Drive be looking at the cluster?
Same thing, I think in the summertime, very little, you know, in the wintertime when the leaves are down a little bit more.
Okay.
And
So-
could you remind me, what did you say the distance was from the closest home to
I think about 90 feet.
the property line, to the house?
Well, the closest home is 10 feet to the property line, but about 90 feet to the neighbor's house.
So 10 to 12 feet in between each home?
Yes.
I wanted to know,
Generally
um,
15.
Yeah, the design is 15.
You mentioned the towns that you have done these clusters in. Have you done work in Acton? I know you said Boxcar. Have you done work
I
in
have
Acton?
not done any in Acton.
I have.
Okay. So on Route 28, by chance, because that's one place where I have seen cluster homes and,
No, I'm doing, my affordable project right now is in Westford on Powers Road, just past the Neshoba Ski area if you're coming from Acton.
all right, thank you.
Damon, can I ask one question, actually, just maybe to get it on the end of what Claire was saying? What is the length of your cul-de-sac?
It's about a little over 800 feet.
And what's the length restriction we have on a cul-de-sac that wasn't a 40B?
500.
Okay, just curious to see.
I'm gonna take the residents first, Ben. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Russ Moser, 59 Pearson, I'm in a butter. I had a few questions, but one, I felt bad for Ben through all the previous. He took all the abuse for what the developer didn't do. And my question is, do you have any plans to meet with your butters to see what can be worked out in terms of visibility and such? I guarantee you, from my back steps, I will see those houses, summer or winter.
We do, we'll be reaching out to the individual abutters.
We generally wait till we get our site eligibility letter so that we know we have a project. And then in conjunction with our filing with the zoning board of appeals, we will often call a neighborhood meeting to meet the neighbors prior to the first zoning board meeting so that we can get a little preview of some of the concerns and maybe be able to address them before we get before the zoning board. So we try to be efficient in that regard, but yes, a neighbor meeting is typical.
So, and I think you answered this before, but I don't know if I heard you correctly. You anticipate from first shovel to completion approximately 2 years for the
Yes.
project? Sounds good to me, but I'll be
Well,
surprised.
what I typically do is, I have my own firm, but I sub out the roadway construction, so I have a company in there that's doing exclusively the roadway and the utilities. And I have another company that does the site work for the houses. And we start the houses at the same time, we're working on the roadway. We have the binder done by the time we're ready to put our finishing touches on the inside of some of the houses.
Okay, and then, this is more a question for the you folks, is, this is being called 55R Pearson Drive. Is this property part of the lot at 55 Pearson Drive?
According to our records, it's all one lot.
So then it's subject to all the covenants and restrictions that are on the deeds on Pearson Drive at this time, correct?
I think the deed dates on those need to be checked, actually. So,
But any that are valid?
any that are valid.
Okay, thanks, that's all.
I'm Bart Brankin, 69 Pearson. I am in a butter. I appreciate you're going to reach out to us. Excuse me? Yes. I'm sorry.
Ben,
I'm sorry. Okay. I appreciate that you're going to be reaching out to us beforehand, but let it be known that you have not reached out to us really yet. And so we're relatively new. We'd really like to understand this. As you know, there's a huge impact on our community. I wouldn't say 250 trips is negligible on our streets. So I don't agree with that characterization. Now, my question to you is, I'm very happy that we're looking at affordable units. They're absolutely necessary. Why would you pick this property here when you know that there's all kinds of environmental issues which will be addressed and will be, investigating? When there's other opportunities in the area, why this one, which gets shoehorned, a cul-de-sac at the end of a cul-de-sac, where it's going to have dramatic impact on the existing community? Why would you go with this one? What is the purpose of that? And what did you do to look at other opportunities before you decided to build on this?
Well, this property became available to me. As far as the environmental issues, I think we can address all of those environmental concerns, and we're leaving a lot of that area as open space. I'm a fan of cluster subdivisions. Again, I think it's low impact. I think it's more green. That's what we should be doing. And I'm a proponent of affordable housing, and I just think this project would be a nice project.
Did you look at any other locations within Newbury?
I did not. No.
And I guess I would ask the boards here whether or not there are other opportunities to do affordable housing where it may have less impact on a community as well as the environment.
I think it's something that the town is struggling with, to find the appropriate spots to do affordable housing in town. We have a plan that we've asked with the Merrimack Valley Planning, and we're trying to move forward with that, but it's not trivial to find the right locations for these things.
And I think in addition to the right location, it's the right developer.
Peter, what'd you say?
I'm sorry, it's my voice. In addition to the right location, it's the right developer. Because there have to be developers that are interested in doing this type of development. And historically, that's not what's been attracting to the town.
Kristen,
Sorry,
yeah, come on up and say who you are.
Hi, Kristen Groves, 28 Elm Street. So I have a couple questions. How much developable land are you not developing with your cluster design?
I do have a figure here that says that of the 15 plus acres we have, there, you remember, I know it's here, how many acres of wetland there was? Was it 5 or?
I don't recall there's a big piece of wetland that's kind of off of this property to the right. We don't even show it on this map.
Go back to the other one.
Yeah. So the property actually goes to that black line over to the right of the page. So there's a large area there that's open. Not all of that is wetlands. If you look at GIS maps, there is some upland over in there. I don't have a figure.
So we've got 6 plus acres of wetlands. We've got 15 plus acres of total area. That gives us about 9 plus of high and dry, and we're utilizing about 7. So there's a couple of acres plus of high and dry land that we're not proposing to.
Is that including including the upland to the right of, to the east of the?
That doesn't,
yes.
that doesn't include that.
Doesn't include that,
actually.
oh.
We didn't include that in that figure,
Oh,
so there's
okay.
a little more upland over there.
So if you were to develop this with a cluster not under 40B, what could you do? I'm sure you've looked at that.
I think you could do a conventional single-family homes 10.
Maybe a portion of the lots would be wetlands, portion wouldn't be, so 8 to 10.
Has the board, or will the board have the opportunity to look at what a conventional development of the site would be? Because I think, I guess I would advise that would be
Are
interesting.
you asking what the yield plan would be for a conventional
Yes,
development there?
yes.
It would be 9 to 10 single-family lots.
Using access across 55.
Yes, same access, correct.
And my understanding is, though, the 500-foot limit on the cul-de-sac might,
There is actually a by right plan as part of our application that you have. And it shows the cul-de-sac meeting the 500-foot regulatory. That by right plan shows the 9 lots that could be built in conformance with your planning subdivision rules and regulations.
And that did perk,
Excuse me?
and that did perk, those 9 units.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
That land perk, we did quite a bit of work on that.
All 9 units.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't specifically do perk tests for 9 units, we sporadically did perk tests through the whole property and it perks.
so what would be the cul-de-sac length on those 9?
Well,
It would be 500 feet to the throat of the cul-de-sac, and then there'd
From
be an
Pearson.
oversized circle.
From the Pearson
Yeah.
access? And is that allowed, a cul-de-sac on top of a cul-de-sac?
That's been an issue that was raised previously and is still a concern.
Okay. Thanks. My other question relative, many of the questions and considerations tonight are sort of site planning that assumes you've got your eligibility, you know, what do the houses look like, how close are they, what's the buffer, those kinds of things. My understanding is that Mass Housing evaluates proposals according to how well they meet the state's sustainable development principles.
correct.
And I haven't heard, could you just explain that? I've looked at your proposal, but I would like this discussion to sort of hear how you explain that this is appropriate in terms of transit, in terms of accessibility, in terms of recreational, public access, all those kinds of sustainable development principles.
Sure, and as you mentioned, we actually did the sustainable principles analysis is a requirement of your site eligibility application to Mass Housing. So they do have it as well as the town. And I am not going for a minute to say that I can remember it all off the top of my head, but I will refer to the form. Essentially what it does is we're required to identify the physical location of the proposed project as it relates to things like amenities, public transportation, recreational facilities, schools, retail establishments, service establishments, restaurants. And so what we do is actually do a plan that identifies the distance to all of those various amenities. And quite frankly, as you can imagine, it's really easy to hit a home run on those when you're building in Cambridge or in Lowell, Lawrence, cities, right? Because everything's walkable to that. We certainly run into difficulties in meeting those principles when you start to talk about more rural areas, like Newbury and Westford and Acton, and, you know, because while those towns all have a little commercial area, some of them may even have a bus stop or a train station, it's one little area, you know, so it's difficult to find a spot. But this particular spot, as you know better than I, it really is not all that far from quite a host of amenities. And I apologize, I will find it.
Doug's right, too. So you have to look at the development in the context of the community as well. Certainly, we don't have a bus route that goes by here. But mass housing for density requirements that allow from 6 to 24 units per acre. We're talking about 1.6 units per acre here because we're in a rural community. It would be not practical, and I don't think anybody would like it if we proposed a 48-unit apartment building back there, 2-bedroom apartments, because it wouldn't fit. I don't think it would fit in the community. But a cluster subdivision of homes that were like what's already in the neighborhood fits more appropriately than some of those other options that are available.
I think the question should be apples and apples, not apples and not apples. This is a question about sustainability.
Okay, well, I
maybe-
found my
can I-
text.
Excuse me, can I just,
Sure, absolutely.
because I have it right here in front of me. This, you check the box, this is walkable to transit. Could you explain how this is walkable to transit? It's also walkable to downtown or village center, it's walkable to a school, which they prefer sidewalks, walkable to library, walkable to retail services or employment center.
But it is walkable because it's only 1.1 mile to a school, 1.8 mile to some stores. There is the Merrimack Valley bus that will come by and pick people up. Newbury has a transit service as well. The town hall and some of the other buildings and town offices are not that far away. The miles are measured and placed on that application.
But you are correct in your statement that Mass Housing will analyze our answers, verify our numbers in concluding whether or not this is an appropriate location.
Okay, I mean, I guess I request the boards to look carefully at what was checked on the proposal and identify the areas where there may be some question about validity. I do live in the area, I ride my bike regularly down Orchard Street, I've ridden up Pearson Drive. I don't find it a safe place. I certainly wouldn't let my child walk to school from this location, even if there was an elementary school walkable, which there isn't. I think, you know, I've never seen a bus. Those of you on Pearson Drive might know if a bus route goes there, I don't know. I also have some concerns about the environmental impact, and just to make one note, this says that it utilizes existing water and sewer infrastructure. That box is checked. So I'm not sure we heard tonight that it utilizes existing water and sewer infrastructure.
We're gonna tap into the existing water line on
Pearson.
Right.
I mean, we're putting
to
new
expand
utilities
it.
within our road,
To
but
expand it, yeah.
yes.
My understanding of this is if it's in an area that already has infrastructure, like if we were trying to build housing outside this building right here, you wouldn't need to have expanded infrastructure.
That's not our interpretation.
That's not,
Okay. Thank you.
One thing, though, building on what Kristen said, you do have 800 feet. It is impervious, so it's gonna have great care to, you know, drainage and other things and the impacts of those tight roofs to that area. And I imagine you're gonna be all propane, you're not gonna be oil heat. I mean, because it's, you know, you're right next to Martin Burns, it is a very pristine area. And our road salt and all the other issues are gonna be pushed back, you know, so you would have great care to those type of impacts.
While the 40B process affords us relief from some of your zoning, density type regulations, as far as public health and safety, we're held to the highest standard as all your development is. So we will have to meet all stormwater management guidelines, state and local, or state.
Are you using natural swales? What's the proposal? Are you using, quick ponds, drain, what are we doing with the water coming off the road?
So we have a catch basin system, deep sump catch basins provides the initial treatment. Some of it is in
Did you
a
say what kind of catch basins?
deep sump, that's the initial
So
treatment.
they're gonna need to be serviced?
Correct, that'll be maintained by the homeowners association. The underground stormwater detention system in the circle utilizes the filter wrapped chamber system to further filter out the the suspended solids, and has an infiltration component which provides more treatment. There are detention ponds for volume for the large storms. The ponds will have 7 forebays. I believe one of the ponds could be a wet pond, I don't recall.
So it's all really, it's gonna be mechanical, which is good, so
Right.
there's nothing really to light impact development, it's all gonna be mechanical treatment.
Closed system, collection system. We are gonna collect and infiltrate roof runoff.
Yeah, because, you probably should have some sort of, when you're gonna check that as a schedule too.
Our stormwater management plan will have an operation maintenance program that is incorporated into the condominium documents, the homeowners association documents, and it'll be an item that comes, that's taken care of by the association fee.
And again, we generally required to provide a copy of the homeowner's contract with the stormwater maintenance company to the zoning board, or whichever town board the zoning board directs us to. So again, there's assurance that there is a contract in place for the stormwater system maintenance as well as the septic.
And project in Westford, for instance, we actually have a document that we have all our purchasers sign, saying that they acknowledge there's an order of conditions on the site, that they've read it, and they understand that there's a maintenance agreement, and we have everybody sign it as well.
Now, did Natural Heritage and Endangered Species sign off on the last one?
There is no need to go to this is not a mapped area. It's not a mapped area.
What does that mean? Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to answer that question?
Sure.
Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program, which is part of DEP, maps areas throughout the state that are either habitat areas or potential habitat areas for species, endangered species, species of special concern. And they identify these areas throughout the state. If you are proposing to develop an area that's included within those maps, you then have to file for permits through the Natural Heritage Program. Understandably, they restrict the development and the impacts to the habitat areas of those animals. We're not proposing to disturb or develop any such mapped area. So we don't have to go to Natural Heritage.
I know the town has the remap ability to put GIS layers on and off a lot. I put the heritage layer on today, and there are 2 dots in the vicinity of this lot that showed up on that data layer.
Yes.
Is that,
Yes,
are
those
you
2
saying
dots.
you know of those, but they're not in the?
No, those 2 dots represent vernal pools, which are small, well, some of them are large, which are wet areas that hold water for a certain percentage of the year, such that they are used by frogs and other
I know what
bird,
I'm.
you know what vernal pool is. All right.
Okay, so we,
Thank you.
so
Some
we just
people
had
might-
those mapped and certified, as all the conservation
Right,
commission.
as part of our working with Conservation Commission, we had 2 of those areas
Well,
determined, right? Or-
there's only one.
Okay.
So the vernal pool, which was mapped by, the woman from
Category?
Battery, up in the top left, right above where that little label is, there's a vernal pool right in there, and she's
Oh, in
mapped
fact,
it
that's, yeah,
and got it certified.
right there.
We have applied twice for the isolated wetland area A, which is right in the middle of our property. It's an isolated land subject to flooding, and Natural Heritage for a second time has refused the application and said it does not come up to,
No.
the standards of being a vernal pool.
So the dots you see are vernal pools in the area that Natural Heritage has.
Right, they have the dot for this one here, and there's another one, I think, up in the back on the Martin Burns property, I saw that as well. It's a little ways, it's not on our map, but it is up there.
So just to go back to your earlier point, they've been identified, but they're not criteria that requires the heritage
The
to
2 that are
have any
dotted,
other
the 2 that are shown on your map, those have met the criteria and they are what is known as a certified pool. Natural Heritage has determined it is a pool that meets the characteristics. What Ben is referring to is that middle wetland, there was a question raised as to whether or not there may be a vernal pool in there. So we filed it for analysis by Natural Heritage, and they came back and said that particular area does not meet their criteria as a vernal pool, so it is not mapped.
So is
further
there any
than that-
impact
further than
on your
that-
proposal relative to the vernal pools?
We do not have to go to Natural Heritage if we don't touch the vernal pool. We're not touching the vernal pool. Our stormwater systems, our septic systems, everything meets the required offset to a vernal pool. Those issues are reviewed by the Conservation Commission and the Board of Health, not Natural Heritage. So we just have to stay away from it a certain distance. If we do that, then we don't have to go to them.
Do you know what that distance is? I'm just
Septic
curious.
system needs to be 100 feet, and we can't have a stormwater outlet within 100 feet.
And where the septic discharge leach field is less than 100 feet from that?
It's more than 100, it's 100
Sorry,
feet,
more than.
it's 100 feet.
Is that 100 feet depending on soil conditions, or is it 100 feet?
100 feet. Edge to edge.
There's just one that's actually certified. Thanks.
Further questions? Does it come up?
I'm Rebecca Bryan at 69 Pearson, and we are in a butter. I apologize, I was late, I had to leave work in order to get here. So maybe you already addressed these questions, but in the earlier presentation and reading through the application, I understood that there was something about a requirement for sidewalks, of which there are none on Pearson, and then there was conversation about there was land that they would be built. Could you please speak to that?
Sure, we are providing sidewalks within our development.
And what about the rest of Pearson Drive?
We are not.
So I guess, my understanding in the last reading is that there was something about those being required.
Last reading, I'm sorry.
When we were here for another meeting and when I read through the whole
Is that the
proposal.
previous project, perhaps?
I don't think so. So I would just ask that that really get reviewed, because perhaps I misunderstood that, but there was conversation about that, being on Pearson Drive, and then those needing who was gonna be paying to have those built and how that was gonna happen. So a lot of my concerns have already been listed. I won't go through them again, but I'm really concerned. I don't believe this is in good faith, that this is trying to support affordable housing. It's not in walkable distance. It's not. Maybe on a map if you're flying through the air. It's really upsetting. Because I feel if we're going to provide affordable housing, it should actually be something that would be put to good use for people. My other question was that you said I don't want to misquote you, but you were saying that the final house would be related, it would be finished related, it would be due to the market. So I heard, and this could be wrong, at a neighborhood gathering, that they were gonna be built as they were sold.
We typically do a few homes at a time. We usually have pre-sales, but we would not build 24 houses on spec, no.
So when you said 2 years, but earlier you said due to market, can you just say what you're saying as far as when the
We
first?
believe we'll be able to sell 18 market rate homes within 2 years.
The absorption rate of the market is such that we believe for the product we're producing, there will be a demand such that they will all be purchased within that period, yes. I mean, if the housing market heats up to a level higher than it is today, you know, we could sell them all in a year, in which case they would just build them as fast as they could get them done. On the other hand, if the economy goes in a direction that we all hope it doesn't, that could slow the market down and it could take us longer.
And I think you're making a misconception if you think that affordable housing shouldn't be in a rural neighborhood area, because you can't put all affordable housing in downtown city or, you know, where there's mass transit. We're talking about affordable housing for a family with 3 or 4 kids who work as teachers and firemen and are underneath that threshold limit when they're starting off. My daughter started out teaching at $38,000 a year, and if she was married with children, she would qualify for one of these houses. And we need affordable housing in neighborhood districts as well.
So, just for clarification, I think the affordable housing was based on the appraisals, is that right, Martha? Kind of how that works?
Average household price.
Well, it's the median income.
Right, and so that,
And that's the, like Boston, right?
Yeah, Boston, Quincy.
right, and so that affordable number, I think you quoted was 220.
I believe you're right.
What would that market rate be? Just
About
ballpark.
600.
Okay, well, I won't repeat other questions, thank you.
Jen Solis, Daily News, could I just ask to follow up on that, what's the median household number that you're working off of?
To qualify, you have to be 80% of the median income, and it depends on the number of children you have as well.
Well, what's the
So
median
state,
income?
it's based on the Boston area median income. I don't know what it is.
All right, I'll look it up, that's right, thank
I
you.
believe it's in,
Boston, Quincy,
It's on the HUD website, I
The
think.
height, yes.
yep, thank you.
Further questions from the audience? There,
Just,
who's going on?
I just have one more. Would you be able to provide a list of projects that you have done in sort of the same type of areas, so that we could either look or take pictures, or just to get a sense for people to see what the impact, the visual impact would be?
Sure.
there are actually some in the application. There's a whole listing in the
In the
application.
application, okay.
So actually, the one I'm working on now, and you're free to go, is Sugar Maple Lane in Westford off Powers Road. Though those are townhouse units, but the buildings are only 20 feet apart. But a good example of this one, there was 124 homes that I did in Kingsborough called Maple Ridge Development. And those houses, one section was 55 and older. We did 72 55 and older homes. And those houses are only about 20 feet apart.
And are they arranged the same way in a circle?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
So if I could just follow up, Mark Brackett at 69 Mount Pearson. So when you go in and you're building this, I'm assuming you're raising the area. You're just getting rid of all the trees and everything. So to what degree do we have a say, do you have a say in how you try to maintain the trees that exist there right now?
We're always amenable in the course of the zoning board hearings. We will discuss impacts. Obviously, we're gonna have to clear an area large enough for the septic. We're gonna have to clear an area large enough that there aren't trees hanging over any of the homes. So we do try and minimize the amount of clearing necessary, but to the extent that, say for instance, the zoning board asks us to look at, you know, not clearing here to the extent shown if it's not necessary, sure, we work with the board to identify areas where, you know, we could pull it in or, you know, save trees. Yeah, there's some of that, but you are right in the sense that at a minimum, there's an area we have to clear in order to build the homes and put in the utilities and put in the septic. You know, we can't have trees hanging over. But then, of course, as you can see, at least in a very elementary concept, we are proposing to provide street trees, you know, at least one per house to fill in trees. In addition to the trees, there'll be bushes and bright flowers and, you know, kind of ornamental landscaping. But that is generally a discussion at the zoning board to make sure that we're not overly clearing.
Just an observation. Is that basically gonna be mowed or be fields? Mowed. You know, weekly kind of?
Oh yeah, there will be, again, the homeowners association will contract with a landscaping company that will mow the yards, do the mulch beds.
Yeah, but I mean mowed around kind of the green area.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, with the amount of Texas and Martin Burns, that's a good idea.
And as we said, we are looking to what kind of recreational opportunities we might be able to have on that septic area, because it is flat, grass. And
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, I was just saying, you know, it provides a nice flat potential area for whatever. And again, a lot of times when we start talking with the zoning board, you know, they'll get more specific about what they would want us to see us do there. I don't know, provide some soccer goals or some benches or a, you know, playground area. You know, that's all discussable, or we discussed with the zoning board.
House one, sorry, there's no lots. Is there any reason that's down at the end of that common drive instead of up closer to the main roadway in the design? Because that's the closest to an abutting existing house.
Sure. Well, as you know, when we're designing a site like this, we have a number of variables we have to consider. First and foremost is the wetlands. And as you can see, what we've tried to do is keep a buffer zone to all the wetlands. Do you know, Ren, offhand, what our minimum, you know, we 50 feet, 25?
We generally try to keep 25 feet away with the yards.
No touch, right. And then the buildings themselves are more like 50 minimum at the closest points. But you can also see that these homes out here, you know, here's our wetland here. I suspect we'll probably end up not clearing.
Well, that's
this
a
up.
drainage facility.
All right, drainage area, that's why it's cleared, but we do keep buffers. So you take your wetlands, you draw your buffers, and then you calculate the density necessary to make the project economic, and you fit the boxes in. And quite frankly, you know, this is an area that was available. I see your point, but.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it could slide up the common drive, be off the main road.
And you know, that's something we can look at. You gotta start somewhere, and then we usually end up working with the zoning board to shuffle some things, move some things. Your fire and police may have some comments that require us to move it. You know, it's not often that what we present at this time is the final design.
I just wasn't sure if there's an engineering reason that it needed to be where it was, if there's a rocky outcropping, something like that, that pushed it there, if it's just putting the boxes up, so thank you. We'll take a look.
Yeah, we'll look at that.
Just one last question. How many, does it need to be this many houses?
Yes. One of the things that we are required to do and limited is in our financial feasibility of the project. We have to show Mass Housing and the town that one hand, we're not making greater than a 20% profit on the project. Otherwise, any profits beyond that must be turned back over to the town. On the other hand, unless we show that the project is economically viable, and the state generally looks at projects between 11 and 15% return as a minimum viability. If we were, for instance, gonna say, hey, if we build it exactly as we've shown it, and we're gonna make 5% profit, the state would probably not grant an eligibility letter, because at that slim a margin, you know, a few wrong turns, and all of a sudden, you've got a project that's uneconomic, doesn't get finished, you know, doesn't get completed. The state doesn't want that to happen any more than they want anyone to profit more than their limitations. So I believe we're in that 11 to 12% range with this number of units. As we reduce units, that number drops, and it would drop below, you know, the financial feasibility levels. So yes, there is a reason for the number.
All right, further questions from the audience? Are there any more questions from either of the boards?
I just have a quick question for Doug. You said you have worked on a similar project up in Newburyport?
No.
No, not you, Walter, my office
I'm
has.
sorry.
Well, my partner has been
But
involved.
it was an affordable, and where in Newburyport was that located? And is it a similar style
I
project?
will send you that information. I did work on it, my partner Melissa Robbins, who,
Is it Drape's Land?
yeah, we've worked on Drake's Landing, but I don't think that's affordable.
It would be just, you know, maybe interesting for the people in the community to see something similar, you know.
Yeah, let me send that
A visual.
information over to you, the projects, similar projects that we've worked at. And I will also sort of give you the list of the projects Walter's done, so that they're just more easily identifiable, and people can go check them out if you'd like.
Okay, that could all be sent to me.
Yes,
Yep.
of course.
You know, don't send them all to me.
Speaking of sending things to Martha, I think, do you want to describe what you'd like for input and the letter that goes forward from here from the town?
Sure, so we are, as was mentioned earlier, we're sort of in the sort of review and comment phase of the site approval and project eligibility application. This is the first step in the process. And so Mass Housing is looking for comments from the town. We have until September 23rd to get our comment letter to Mass Housing. So to that end, I'm collecting any comments or letters that anybody would like to send to me. My goal is to have a draft ready by next Wednesday, the 18th. So if you can get comments to me by ideally this Thursday, the 12th, or the latest Monday, the 16th, that would be great. So letters, questions, comments, whatever, and best by email, so planningboard@townofnewbury.org.
Can you just clarify, so will Monday be okay?
Yeah, Monday's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
You're welcome.
No other questions, no other information to be presented. So I think from the perspective of the planning board, we've heard the information that we need to hear from this evening. That being the case, Martha,